You've probably seen it happen. Someone runs into an acquaintance, and within the first few minutes the questions start coming. What are you up to these days? How's work going? Are you still with that person? What are your plans for the next year? And the person on the receiving end gets quieter with each one. Shorter answers. A polite smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes. And at the first reasonable opportunity, they find a way to end the conversation. The person asking walks away thinking, they're not very friendly. Or, there's something off about them. Or simply, why do they always seem so closed off? But closed off isn't quite the right description for what's happening. And unfriendly is even further from the truth. What's actually going on inside the mind of someone who shuts down when the questions don't stop is something more specific, more considered, and more psychologically coherent than it appears from the outside. Let's start with the most basic misreading. When someone doesn't respond warmly to a lot of questions, the instinct is usually to read that as a sign that something is wrong with them, or wrong between you and them. They're hiding something. They're antisocial. They don't like you. These are the conclusions most people reach because, for most people, questions feel like interest. Asking is a way of saying, I see you, I want to know you, I care about what's happening in your life. But that equation, questions equal care, is not universal. And for the people we're talking about today, it doesn't hold at all. Psychologists who study personal boundaries describe them not as walls designed to keep people out, but as systems that protect the integrity of the self. A boundary isn't a refusal to connect. It's a framework that determines how connection happens, on what terms, at what pace, and with what level of readiness on both sides. People with clearly defined psychological boundaries experience the inner landscape of their own thoughts, feelings, and experiences as genuinely private, not secret, but private. There's a meaningful difference between the two. A secret is something you're concealing because it would be damaging if known. Privacy is simply the condition of things that belong to you and haven't been shared yet. These people draw that line clearly and deliberately. What's inside is theirs. They decide what moves across that line, when, and with whom. When questions come fast and without invitation, it doesn't register as interest. It registers as pressure. Not necessarily hostile pressure, just the specific discomfort of being asked to hand over something from inside a space they didn't open. The reaction isn't to the content of the questions themselves. It's to the pace and the implicit demand embedded in them. Answer now, account for yourself now, make yourself legible to me right now. And that demand, however innocently meant, is one they find genuinely difficult to meet on someone else's timeline. The discomfort isn't rudeness. It's a boundary being pushed against, and the instinct is to step back rather than through. Now let's talk about something that goes a layer deeper. The relationship between questions and trust. For many people, answering questions is how connection happens. You ask, I answer, I ask, you answer. And through that back and forth exchange, we build some understanding of each other. The question is the mechanism. It's how you get in. For the people we're examining, the mechanism works differently. They don't open up because they've been asked. They open up because they've built something first, a felt sense of safety with a person, accumulated over time, through consistency and presence and shared experience. The question isn't what opens the door. The trust is what opens the door. The question can only walk through after it's already been unlocked from the inside. Psychologists who study disclosure patterns have found significant variation in what triggers genuine sharing between people. For a subset of the population, often those with a more avoidant attachment style, or simply a higher need for felt safety before vulnerability, the act of being questioned before that foundation exists doesn't feel like an invitation into closeness. It feels like a request to be transparent with someone who hasn't yet earned that transparency. This isn't paranoia. It isn't coldness. It's a different architecture of trust, one that builds from the inside out rather than the outside in. These people are capable of deep and genuine openness with the right people in the right context. But that context can't be manufactured by asking the right questions at the right moment. It has to develop at its own pace, through its own means, without being hurried. When someone who hasn't yet built that foundation starts asking a lot of personal questions, it doesn't land as care. It lands as data collection, someone acquiring information about them that hasn't been freely offered. And that gap between what's being asked for and what's been established is exactly where the shutting down happens. The third piece of this is perhaps the least visible from the outside, and the most important for actually understanding these people. Many of them are still processing. There's a well-documented difference in how introverted and highly reflective people relate to their own inner experience. For more externally oriented people, thinking and talking are often the same process. They work out what they feel by saying it out loud, in real time, in conversation. The talking is the thinking. The answer arrives in the act of speaking it. For deeply reflective people, those two things are separated by a significant gap. Before anything can be said honestly, it has to be processed internally first. Feelings have to be examined. Experiences have to be sat with. The meaning of something has to be worked out in private before it can be communicated accurately to someone else. This isn't a choice or a personality quirk. It's how their minds actually function, and it can't be rushed without cost to the honesty of what comes out. When questions come rapidly, before that internal process has had time to complete, these people face a genuinely difficult situation. They can give a fast answer that isn't really true, or they can say nothing meaningful and hope the conversation moves on. Either way, the experience is uncomfortable, not because they don't want to answer, but because the honest answer isn't ready yet. It's still forming somewhere inside them, and the pressure of rapid questioning interrupts that process rather than helping it along. What they need isn't fewer questions in the long run. It's the space to arrive at answers in their own time, and share them when those answers are actually ready to be shared, rather than when someone else's curiosity demands them on the spot. So let's put together an honest picture of who these people actually are. They are not hiding anything. They are not unfriendly. They are not people who would rather be alone than known. They are people who have clear internal boundaries, who build trust through means other than question and answer exchanges, and who require a certain amount of interior time before anything they say about themselves can be genuine rather than just convenient. In a culture that treats immediate openness as warmth and reticence as coldness, these people are consistently misread. They get labeled as difficult or distant or not worth the effort of getting to know. And that misreading costs something, both the people doing it and the ones being misread. Because the people who take the longest to open are often the ones who, once they do, offer something that was actually worth waiting for. They just needed the conditions to be right before they could offer it honestly. What looks like distance is often just a different timeline. What looks like secrecy is often just a different understanding of when something is actually ready to be said out loud. The people who answer least freely are sometimes the ones who, when they finally do speak, say something worth hearing. If that resonated, leave a comment. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'll see you in the next video.